Hey there, my name is Lisa Nickel, and welcome to the Sacred and Rooted podcast. On this podcast, we explore a wide range of topics from how to deepen your connection with the divine to how to make your day to day life feel more meaningful and joyful. Through mindset, spirituality, cyclical living, and my personal favorite, meditation, my wish for you is that you live a life you are excited about on a soul level, where you feel grounded, divinely powerful, and most of all, free to be authentically you. I hope you enjoy the show. The music for my podcast is created by my beautiful sister, Sarah Russell. Her contact info is in the show notes. Hey, this is Lisa. Welcome to the podcast. Nice to see you or be with you again. This episode is something that I'm working on now, that I've been working on for years at this point. And it started off with a quote from James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits. If you haven't read it, I would recommend it highly. And the quote goes like this: "You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And it's always struck me. It stuck with me all these, whenever I read his book. I don't remember, a couple years ago, maybe. Anyway, it stuck with me because goals have always been something that, you know, were encouraged in my family when we were kids. And, it's always been something in society or at work. Like, what are your, work goals? Where do you want to see yourself in whatever amount of years? But nobody really talks about, like, if the weak spot there, where it's like, if you do, have bad days, if you do have bad weeks, months, whatever, you're falling to the level of your systems. And so what are your systems? And it's also easier to meet your goals when you look at them from a systems perspective and tweak daily things instead of, have some huge goal and you don't really know how to, like, cut it down into, like, small chunks. And so it could seem completely out of your reach. It could seem almost impossible. Um, and that's another podcast episode probably. But for today, I want to focus on, what are your systems? Like, what have you set up in your life for yourself that allows you to operate at a high level, or whatever level you want to consider yourself operating on? Allows you to operate efficiently, allows you to operate consistently, or as consistently as possible, and supports you in your, you know, productive life, your happy life, your, meaningful life, all these things. And so when you are considering, how do I feel in my life? What would I change in my life? If I wanted to be someone who did this, how would I have to change my day-to-day life now? And that is fascinating, because then it really gets, you have to pull back the curtain on some of your bad habits, probably. Unless you are operating at, like, some sort of really high level, you probably, allow yourself to not go to the gym every so often. You're too tired, you're too this, you're too that. And so we don't have a system in place that really just keeps us on the even keel, or on the level that we are intending to be at. And Mel Robbins has a really good, um, I guess, I don't know what you'd even call it, sort of like a system. It's her system of, how she gets up in the morning, basically, or even just does something that she doesn't really feel like doing. Um, Even though she knows it would be better for her to do it in the long run. But, we all have days where it's just like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that today, or I don't have the energy, I have too many other things to do, and on and on. And so she has this thing where she can see in her mind it's starting to run like, yeah, I think maybe we'll just do that tomorrow. It'll be fine. And so she gives herself, she counts down to 5, and then she's like, at the end of that, we're just gonna do it. And so whether that is literally getting up in the morning, or making going to the gym, or going for that walk, or you know maybe just on your phone scrolling, and you're like, okay, I really got to get on with something. And so, excuse me, to just use that as a system. That's an example of a system where it's like, okay, if I find that my mind is actually looks like it might actually talk me out of doing something that I know is for my best, in my best interest, then use that method: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just do it. Don't think any longer about how you feel about it and make up a big story around it. Just, yes, I'm going for a walk today. Yes, I'm going to the gym today. Yes, I'm going to go to bed now, even. Um, Anything. It can be anything. But that's an example of a way to help yourself, not talk yourself into just, the easiest road. It's a little more, the road that's in your best interest in the long run, which is not always something we feel like doing. Feeling like doing can sometimes come later, and we don't feel like it, and we just do it anyway. And then afterwards, it's like, okay. And for me, that mostly comes when with going to the gym. And I have to say, at some point after doing it so much, where you just do it, not because you feel like it, but because like you're getting into a habit, you're building up a routine. Um, at some point, you actually realize, like, wow, this actually, when I'm done, I feel great. Like, I think this is a great addition to my life. And and so that helps reinforce the habit and the activity. And then, assuming you stick with it, you then eventually get to a point where you just do it because you actually want to, you like it, you know that this makes your body feel better. And so consider in your life what your systems are. Uh, we all have probably an alarm to get up. So that's a system. That's how we don't miss work. We don't sleep until lunch, whatever it is. We have food in our fridge that's healthy for us. So we snack less, or, if we do need a snack, it's an apple instead of a bag of chips, that kind of thing. So that's a system. You're trying to keep the food that you take in healthy. Um, I mean, I drink Diet Pepsi from time to time, and I never buy it and put it in the house because I would drink so much more of it. And so it's like a system for me where it's like, if I really, really, really seem to, want one, then I have to go out to the store and actually get it myself. And that's a hindrance. It's like, well, I'll just have some tea instead. And so that's another example of a system where it's just like, what you want the outcome to be, you're setting yourself up for success. And making it more likely that under any circumstance, you will probably go in the direction that you want to go in. I meditate regularly. That's a system that I have in my life that allows me to be a better boss, be a better, business owner, be a better parent, be better in my partnership. Um, it helps me with patience, compassion, it makes me more loving person all the way around. And so that's another example. So yeah, so when you're considering your life, and especially if you're trying to make a change, um, what kind of systems could you put in to, flip the scales or tip the scales on towards your success? And so that is like the key to anything that you want to get in life, anything that you want to do in life. It's there, and it's not so much what's your goal, but it's also like, okay, you have goals. For sure you want goals. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But also, what are the systems? Am I just gonna randomly hope that my goal will get achieved, or I'll have all this free time and just be able to, get my goal finished or meet my goal? No, probably not. You're going to have to set up yourself for success. So I've been writing, another example is I've been writing a book for the last, seems like freaking forever, but seriously, I have been since the fall. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I was probably never gonna have like a whole month off work so that I could just like write and totally focus on it. I probably wasn't gonna have even a whole day off every week or anything to write. And so I needed to set up a mindset, which is a system, and also literally like space in my day to really allow the book to kind of flow through me. And so what I ended up doing after a lot of experimenting and a lot of trial and error, because I did start writing it in the fall, but before then it was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a book this year. And it just time goes by and life is busy and there's a lot of things going on. So, the old saying, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's pretty much where I was with the book. But then I was getting angry with myself because it was like, geez, like you say you want to do this, but then what the hell? Like you just aren't. so, so I had to get real. It's like, okay, this is an excuse. This is an excuse. This is an excuse. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to do it. And so the system that it has been successful so far, uh, is I did have the table of contents written out. And so what I would do was every few days, like even once a week, I would look at the table of contents and I would just read the sections that I hadn't written yet and like the titles. And so my subconscious would sort of pick those titles up in my mind, in the back of my mind as I'm going around my day. And lo and behold, through the next few days, I would end up with different ideas based on the topics that I had read on my table of contents. And then I would actually be kind of like chomping at the bit a bit to get some time to actually write what I was kind of thinking about on those topics. And so I'd voice memo myself, I'd make little notes on my phone so that I wouldn't lose those ideas. And then when I did get time in the evening or once I knew what I wanted to say, then it was easier for me to just want to make time and to just get it all out so that I would have it. And that has worked brilliantly for me because it's some of the percolating of the idea of what the chapter will be about is something that my subconscious can do and my mind can do kind of as I'm going through my day. I don't have to be sitting there at the screen kind of hoping for some inspiration to come. But once it does hit, it's like, oh, okay. Yes, I do want to go home now and write that chapter. Or this weekend, I'm going to make some time to do that. And it's so much faster too once I do actually sit down and write because I've already got all my ideas, thoughts on that topic. And then when I am writing at the computer, literally at the computer, I'm focused. I'm just like, okay, this is what it is. And it's almost like it's a much it's yeah, the inspiration or the wondering about what should I do, this idea or that idea, like that happens not while I'm sitting right at the computer. It happens like before that. And so for me, that works great. And it keeps the book on the top of my mind. And so the ideas for the chapters are kind of like coming as I'm living my life, as I'm going through life, and just they're coming to me that way, and it's worked beautifully. And not that I'm, the fastest book writer there ever is, but it's getting done. Like it's like progress, not perfection. It doesn't have to be like, that I go on a writing retreat and I just have, this like super glorious experience. It's much more gritty than that, let's say, but it's happening. And so that's a win in my opinion. Like that is awesome. And I'm proud of myself, and I'm just happy that it's actually finally feels like it's flowing. And so that's another example of like figure out the system that will work for you, and be relentless in your questioning, I guess, of your motives, as far as if your mind or your ego is telling you something. It's like, does that have to be true? Because I have, for myself, I have a lot of, I have a lot of this. The number one thing I think of frequently is, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time for this. I don't have enough time for that. I gotta do this, like how could I ever fit something else in? And it's amazing when I just let that go. And so I've been, one of my absolute favorite quotes is, everything is happening in divine timing. And if it's important, there'll be time for it. Uh, and that has really opened me up to the flexibility, the agility of just, yeah, of even that book example where it's like, yeah, I'm not going on a writer's retreat. Does that mean I can't write a book? No. Does that mean that I'm going to have to write a book in smaller snippets of time over a longer period of time? Yes, I think so. But it certainly does not mean I can't do it. And so to really keep in mind and notice, be aware of your own, self-sabotaging thoughts, where you're telling yourself, okay, this is, I don't have time for this. Maybe is your thing too. Or anything. Well, who am I to do this? Or how, I have a full life already. Like I can't possibly fit anything in or anything more in. And some of the stuff that you might have in your life right now is less, like maybe you don't need it anymore. Maybe you've done that for so long, and it's like a habit, but you don't, get any pleasure from it, joy from it. It doesn't really move the needle on anything. So it's like, okay, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I don't need to volunteer at this place anymore. Maybe I just take a break and for the summer and don't volunteer there and do something else. See how it goes. It can be an experiment. Your life is a giant experiment. So try things. See what works, see what doesn't, throw out what's not working, and try something else. And you'll find that even with the simple intention, like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get this done. I'm going to figure out how I can fit this activity or something in my life. You'll do it. You'll do it. You're resourceful and you're smart. You you will make time for things that are important to you, that light you up, and that really give your life more meaning than not. And so question your mind, the stories that you are creating in your mind about why you can't possibly do something, and then figure out, through trial and error, through tweaking, through just experimenting basically with your systems, like what systems can you put in place to enable your success. At work, I have a quote that says your success is inevitable. And so if you think that literally through and through, you're going to short circuit the small talk that like really talks you down and out of doing things. And you're going to think, okay, my success is inevitable. So if I take that with the book example, my success is inevitable. Okay, I know for sure I'm going to get this book written. And then it's not so much like, I have no time for this. It's more like, how am I going to fit this in? How do I have things in my life that are, that take up space but don't have any real value to me? As a really good example is scrolling on your phone. Um, can you take some of that away and have time for writing? Can you, maybe the kids get their driver's license and they can start driving themselves around, and holy smokes, now you have like an extra few hours in the evening. um, Carpool with other people's families for kids stuff and save yourself from driving each and every single time. Um, Anything. Those are just a couple of examples off the top of my head. But yeah, the systems. Your life is you set yourself up for more inspiration, more creativity when you have systems and not having to think about everything from scratch every time. Another one that just came to mind is my partner and I were talking about this because we were laughing at ourselves. Especially during COVID, it got to be like really pretty casual around here with what we were dressing, what we were wearing. And so he was laughing at himself because it was like the uniform was like a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, like just the same t-shirt with different color, obviously different colors, a couple different styles of shorts, but like very, like you don't have to think about it when you get up and you're like, what am I going to wear today? And you have to go through a whole big, what would fit, not what would fit, but like what would look good together, what jewelry should I put on, which whatever. And same with me, like during COVID and even still, um, I've like probably maybe a little bit too far. I have to do probably a little bit more shopping for myself than I do. Um, but I like at home, it's like black leggings, black tank top, and a sweater. At work, like if I'm at the office, it's like jeans and a fancier top. When I have like not like 1,000 selections of everything, I'm just like literally going into my closet, like, yep, this and that. Okay, done. And so I don't have to sit there and plan for, a half an hour in the morning trying to figure out what the best, cutest outfit would be. Because really, I just want to get on to the next thing. Like what I'm wearing is not, I want it to look nice. I want it to convey like that I look like I can handle myself. I look smart enough to do whatever I'm saying I can do. But not, it doesn't have to be like this huge project in the morning as far as like what should I wear? And so that's another way that your system, you can streamline things to allow yourself not to have to make 1,000 decisions a day about things that you do every day or want to do every day. It's just like it's set up in your favor. Uh, all right, so that's the gist of that. Hopefully that gives you some food for thought. What are the systems you have in your life? Even you may never have thought of them as systems really before. Um, Do they set you up for success or do they set you up for failure? And if they do set you up for failure, maybe those are the ones to take a look at to start with. And then, goals, your hopes and dreams for the future. What new systems could you implement to really make those goals and dreams inevitable? And again, the quote from James Clear is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that is so true. When we get stressed, when we get too tired, when we get too busy, something unexpected happens and it's like all of the goals, all of the high, all of the aspirations, they kind of just fly out the window and it's like, okay, here's bare minimum. So if you have really good systems in place in your life, bare minimum is going to be pretty friggin' awesome. All right. All right. So that is the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, whatever way you can to spread this podcast through the ether. It does really help to leave a 5-star review or a comment with all the little, matrices of the internet that figure out what things should be higher than others. And so if you do have time, I would really appreciate it if you left a review or a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day.